All dog owners know about the 7-year rule. Some may even know it as the rule of Paul, referring to dogs aging 7 years for each human year that passes by, and has been a way for dog owners to calculate the dog's ages for decades if not centuries. It's subconscious and embedded in our minds. It's convenient, but wrong. Fortunately for us, French researcher A. Lebel found a neat way of calculating dogs' ages nearly 70 years back, publishing a paper titled The Age of the Dog and That of a Man, Statistical Essay on Canine Mortality. His research shows how he calculated dogs' ages by separating the dog's life into separate stages of development, from puberty, adulthood, and all the way to elderly life. In 2020, scientists published research on calculating dog years based on how dogs' DNA changes over time, and it turns out that rather than aging consistently by 7 years, dogs age much quicker in the first few years, gradually slowing down. The first year, they age by 15, then 9, then 6, then 4 each year after, but this also varies with the size of dogs. So where did the myth of 7 dog years equaling 1 human year come from? Where did it begin? In 1268, in the pavement of the high altar of Westminster Abbey, the oldest mention of any dog to human year ratio alluded to the lifespan of a dog being 9 years and a human's being 81 back in 13th century England, calculating to a ratio of 9 to 1. As it turns out, in medieval England, life was not easy. Living to the age of 63 or even 81 as stated in the inscription as an average person back then would have been highly unlikely, considering that even King Henry III, the king at that time, with the best quality of life, only lived to the age of 65. Medieval monk of Westminster Richard Sprawley spoke of how the inscription's ages were based off of the mythical lifespans of animals, which could have been referring to people's lifespans in the Bible instead. And if you've read the Bible before, you know the myth-like ages they lived to. Unfortunately, the mean lifespan in the 13th century was a measly 31. The 7-to-1 ratio can still be salvaged if dogs' lifespans were less than they are today. Let's take a look at how old a dog would have lived up to in the 13th century. The most common dogs found back then in England were larger dogs like the greyhound or an Irish wolfhound that don't live too long. One might think that large mammals live long lives. I mean, just look at gorillas that can live to 50 years or elephants up to 80, and whales living up to 200 years. However, for dogs, that rule is reversed. The larger a dog breed is, the faster they age and the faster they meet their demise. Due to how differently our bodies work, dogs have a higher metabolism and end up having to work much harder than a human would, meaning that the dog's wear and tear increasingly faster than a human. This becomes more pronounced with size in dogs, explaining why larger dogs die young. Chihuahuas live anywhere between 12 to 20 years, terriers 13 to 16, and the trend continues with smaller dog breeds. However, the Irish wolfhound's lifespan is just 6 to 10 years. Although some live up to 13, the average is only 7. The good news for dog owners and lovers alike is that dog lifespans all around the board have doubled in the last 4 decades and continue to increase with advances in dogs' quality of life. So although dogs live like kings in today's modern age, dogs back then probably died much earlier than they do today, and could explain the 7-1 ratio taking into account medieval humans' lifespans. Turning our attention to a more recent but still not that recent lead, there is a book published in 1749 called Natural History by the French naturalist Georges Buffon, who reported a ratio of 7 years, pointing out that the average lifespan of humans and dogs would have been 70 and 10 respectively. With a quick Google search, we quickly find out that the average lifespan of a French bloke would have been well below the 30s back then. So numbers seem a little bit off, but maybe it was the birth of the 7-1 ratio. Other than that, there's not much else, but speculation such as this vet from Kansas State University named William Fortney suggesting to the Wall Street Journal that it could have been a ploy by vets to get dog owners for a checkup each year by exacerbating the years that pass by in a dog.